Welcome to another deep dive, everyone. This time, we'll be focusing on the story of Isaac. Isaac, the son of Abraham. And, well, he finds himself in a predicament that's, shall we say, a bit familiar, a famine sweeping across the land. It's almost like history is repeating itself, considering what his father went through.
It really does make you think about those recurring patterns in history. Both Abraham and Isaac, faced with this desperate need, they look to Egypt as a potential solution.
Yeah, Egypt seems like the go-to solution in these situations, but hold on, there's a twist this time. Isaac's ready to head towards Egypt, but then divine intervention steps in.
Right, divine intervention indeed. The Lord appears to Isaac with very specific instructions. Stay put. And attached to this instruction is a pretty remarkable promise. Blessings, abundant land, descendants as numerous as the stars, a legacy designed to touch all nations. It's a weighty promise, a promise with huge implications.
It really is. It makes you consider the weight of such a promise, to be part of something so much bigger than yourself. Yet, even with this incredible promise, Isaac makes a decision that seems to go against his faith. He repeats his father's mistake, claiming that Rebekah, his wife, is his sister, all out of fear.
This repetition of Abraham's deception it's intriguing. It might be easy to just dismiss it as a survival tactic in a dangerous world. But maybe, just maybe, it suggests something deeper, a psychological pattern perhaps, maybe reflecting some inherited insecurities or even, some form of trauma passed down through the generations.
That adds a whole new layer of complexity to Isaac's character. It makes you wonder about the lasting impact of those choices made by previous generations. It becomes more than a simple lie, but a decision with potentially deeper roots. But he doesn't get away with it, right?
No, not quite. Abimelek, the king of the Philistines, he observes Isaac and Rebekah together. And, he sees through the deception. What's surprising, though, is Abimelek's reaction. Instead of some harsh, immediate punishment, he shows a sense of justice, a sense of restraint.
Yeah, his measured response is unexpected. It makes you question those assumptions about how leaders would react in these situations, especially given the cultural context.
Absolutely. Abimelek acknowledges the potential danger of Isaac's deception, but he also protects both Isaac and Rebekah. There's a sense of respect for Isaac there, perhaps even a recognition that there's something special about him.
It sets the stage for a rather nuanced relationship between these two leaders. You have this initial suspicion and deception, but there's also a hint of something deeper developing. So what happens next in Isaac's story?
Well, remember that incredible promise we talked about. Those blessings, they start to manifest in a big way. Isaac's crops thrive, his wealth grows, and he becomes incredibly prosperous.
Yeah.
But this prosperity sparks envy among the Philistines.
The classic tale of human nature. Someone else's success breeding resentment. It's a story that's, it's as old as time.
It truly is a recurring theme, and it plays out so vividly in Isaac's story. The Philistines, driven by envy, they target the very source of Isaac's livelihood, the wells. Now, these wells, they were much more than just, holes in the ground. They were lifelines. They provided the essential water for survival and prosperity.
So by stopping up the wells, the Philistines weren't just playing a prank. It was a calculated attack on Isaac's ability to thrive. It makes you think about how we react, even today, when faced with the success of others. Do we celebrate it? Or do we let envy take root?
That's a powerful question. It really challenges us to examine our own hearts, our own motivations. How do we respond to those blessings and successes of those around us?
So how does Isaac deal with this blatant act of hostility? Does he retaliate?
Well, instead of seeking revenge, Isaac chooses a different path. He relocates to the valley of Gerar, and there he reopens wells that his father Abraham had dug. This act is symbolic, on multiple levels. It's reclaiming his heritage, refusing to be defeated, showing his resilience.
He's drawing strength from his past, from the legacy of his father to overcome the challenges of the present. But I'm guessing the conflict doesn't just vanish overnight.
You're right. The struggle for water, that vital resource, it continues. Isaac digs new wells, Isaac meaning dispute, and Sitna meaning accusation. These names themselves, they tell a story. They capture that ongoing tension. They highlight how important water was as both a source of life and a source of conflict.
It's fascinating how the names of these wells serve as markers in Isaac's journey. They paint such a vivid picture of that ongoing struggle, but I'm holding on to hope here, remembering a well with a different kind of name.
You're thinking of Rehoboth, meaning broad places. It's at this well that the conflict finally subsides. Isaac finds a space to thrive once again, Rehoboth signifies a turning point, a moment of relief, a moment of abundance. And it really beautifully illustrates that biblical theme of struggle followed by divine provision.
Like, even in the midst of conflict, there's this underlying promise of peace and abundance. But before we get too comfortable with this newfound peace, I have a feeling the story isn't over yet.
You always seem to anticipate these twists and turns. Remember Abimelek, the Philistine king? Well, he comes back into the story. But this time his attitude has changed, shifted dramatically.
Oh, here's where things get interesting. What brings about this change in Abimelek?
It seems like he's had a change of heart. He recognizes Isaac's resilience, the consistent favor Isaac seems to have, and he decides it's time for a change. He approaches Isaac seeking a peace treaty.
This shift from hostility to a peace treaty is remarkable. It makes you wonder what prompts such a significant change in perspective. Was it a genuine recognition of Isaac's connection to the divine, or was it, some sort of strategic calculation?
It really is a question worth pondering. It highlights how complex human motivations can be and the potential for transformation even when you're dealing with long-standing conflict.
So how does this peace treaty come about? Do they just shake hands and share a meal?
You're not far off. They formalize the treaty with a shared meal and oaths. And on that very day, something extraordinary happens.
You're not going to tell me that they discover another well, are you?
You guessed it. This new well, it's named Sheba, which leads to the town being called Beersheba, meaning, well of the oath. This well becomes this lasting symbol of the peace established between Isaac and Abimelek. It's not just a source of water, it's a reminder of their agreement, a reminder of the hope for a more peaceful future.
A symbol of life-giving water and a solemn promise. It feels like a fitting end to this chapter of Isaac's story.
It does, doesn't it? But as with any good story, there's always another layer to uncover. And in Isaac's case, that layer involves his son, Esau.
Ah, yes, Esau. His story intertwined with that of his brother Jacob and their relationship.
The shadow of Esau's marriages to those Hittite women, it hangs over the whole narrative. And it wasn't just like cultural disapproval. It was a concern that really struck at the heart of that covenant God made with Abraham.
Right. To refresh our memory a bit, can you explain why those marriages were such a big deal to Isaac and Rebekah? What made it more than just a family squabble?
Okay, so remember, the covenant promised Abraham land, countless descendants, and a unique role in God's plan for humanity. Isaac, being Abraham's heir, he carried the weight of that, the responsibility to make sure that covenant was upheld. Marrying outside the chosen people, that was seen as jeopardizing the purity of the lineage, potentially introducing, foreign beliefs and practices.
It wasn't just a personal preference then, it was about protecting the future of this sacred covenant. It really makes you think about the pressure Isaac must have felt, knowing, the weight of history and destiny was on his shoulders. But let's shift gears for a moment. We've talked about Isaac's challenges, his triumphs, but what are the lessons we can take away from his story? What insights resonate with us today?
Well, one of the most powerful takeaways is God's unwavering faithfulness. Even with Isaac's missteps, the obstacles, God remained true to his promise, providing for him, multiplying his descendants. It's a powerful testament to God's commitment, even when we falter.
Yeah. It reminds us that even with our imperfections and struggles, there's a greater force at work, guiding us, sustaining us. It's not about earning God's favor. It's about recognizing that his faithfulness is constant, regardless of our actions.
Absolutely. And another theme throughout Isaac's story is that cyclical nature of conflict and resolution. From that famine that almost drove him to Egypt, to the envy of the Philistines, to the disputes over wells, you see this pattern over and over. Struggle followed by resolution, often through human effort and divine intervention.
That ebb and flow of conflict and resolution, it feels very relatable, doesn't it? It's like a reflection of, the human experience itself. Facing challenges, striving for solutions, and sometimes, getting caught in that cycle. What matters maybe is how we navigate those cycles.
Exactly. Isaac's story shows the importance of perseverance, seeking peaceful resolutions, and ultimately trusting in God's provision. That treaty between Isaac and Abimelek is a perfect example. Enemies becoming allies, turning conflict into cooperation.
Speaking of that treaty, their journey from hostility to reconciliation is, remarkable. What stands out to you about that transformation? Especially considering Abimelek's, initial envy and aggression.
I think it's that shift in Abimelek's perspective. He goes from seeing Isaac as a rival to recognizing him as, someone blessed by a higher power. It suggests that even deep-seated animosity can be overcome when people are open to seeing each other in a new light.
It's like Abimelech had this epiphany, a moment of clarity that changed everything, and that well they dug together, the well of the oath, it becomes this symbol of their newfound peace. Not just water, but a reminder of their commitment to, a more harmonious future.
That's a powerful metaphor that, well, not just life-giving water, but the potential for reconciliation and cooperation.
Right, right. But even with the treaty, we can't ignore that shadow cast by Esau's marriages. It's a reminder that even in peace and prosperity, you can sow the seeds of future conflict.
Very true. It highlights the complexities of relationships, the unpredictable nature of life. Even the best intentions, the most carefully crafted agreements, can be challenged by unforeseen circumstances.
It reminds us to be humble, acknowledge that we don't control everything, that life's full of surprises. But before we jump into the consequences of Esau's choices, I want to go back to those wells. They played such a crucial role in Isaac's story. We've talked about them as necessities, symbols of conflict. But is there a deeper meaning behind them?
You're right to focus on the wells. They're more than just physical sources of water. Think about them as symbols of life, sustenance, prosperity, and even heritage. They connect Isaac to that land promised to his ancestors, representing his inheritance, his responsibility to carry on the legacy.
So when the Philistines stopped up those wells, it wasn't just sabotage, but a symbolic attack on Isaac's livelihood, his connection to his past.
Precisely. And when Isaac reopened those wells, dug new ones, it showed his resilience, his determination to reclaim his inheritance and fulfill his destiny. Those wells become markers of his journey, reminders of his struggles, his triumphs, his faith.
And each well has a name, a story, adding to the symbolism, from well of dispute to the well of oath. Each name captures a moment in Isaac's journey, creating a map of his life etched in the landscape.
It's a beautiful way to think about it. Those wells and their names, they tell a tale of conflict, resolution, and God's presence guiding him through it all.
We've uncovered quite a bit, haven't we? Divine promises, family tensions, conflict, and then that piece with Abimelech. But, the story doesn't end there. What happens next in this tapestry of Isaac's life?
Well, as we kind of hinted at before, those consequences of Esau's marriages, they start to unfold. It sets off a whole chain of events, really reshaping the family and the future of, the covenant lineage.
Yeah, those marriages, they weren't just a casual family affair. They represented a potential disruption to the covenant God made with Abraham. So how does this tension, how does it play out between Esau and his family?
It seems like Esau, he doesn't fully grasp the seriousness of his choices. His actions, they suggest a disregard for his birthright, that special inheritance and blessing passed down from Abraham. And this creates a complex dynamic with Jacob, his twin brother.
Jacob, known for his cunning and ambition. I can already sense a sibling rivalry brewing here, and not just any rivalry, but one of epic proportion.
Your intuition's spot on. Jacob, with some assistance from Rebekah, his mother, they come up with a plan to secure the blessing that was, traditionally meant for Esau, the firstborn. It's a story full of trickery, disguise, and, a whole lot of family drama.
So they basically orchestrate this plot to take what was, rightfully Esau's. That seems, morally ambiguous to say the least. Raises questions about ambition, deception, the lengths people will go to get what they believe is theirs.
It's definitely complicated. Makes us think about destiny, choice, and those blurry lines between, human actions and divine will. It's not a simple right or wrong kind of story. It's a story that explores those intricate human motivations, the consequences of our choices.
It feels like a turning point in the story, a moment with lasting impacts on everyone. So how does Esau react when he discovers this deception?
Well, he's devastated,
yeah,
and enraged. He pleads with his father for a blessing, but it's too late. The damage is done. And this betrayal, it just drives that wedge deeper between the brothers, forcing Jacob to flee, to escape Esau's wrath.
It's a reminder that even within families, betrayal and hurt can run deep. What about Isaac? Where does he fit in all this drama?
In his old age, Isaac, he grapples with the consequences of his actions and the choices made by his sons. There's a sense of, melancholy, maybe even regret, but he remains a key figure in the narrative.
It's interesting how Isaac, despite his flaws, his missteps, he's still a central character in this whole saga. It reminds us that even those who make mistakes can still play an important role in God's plan.
That's right. Isaac's life had its ups and downs, its controversies, But he was a vessel for God's promises, bridging that gap between Abraham and those future generations who would inherit the covenant. His story shows us that God works through flawed individuals in ways we might not expect to achieve his purpose.
Makes you think about our own lives, how we might be part of something bigger, even when we don't feel up to it or sure of ourselves. But we've reached the end of Isaac's story, haven't we? What legacy does he leave behind?
Isaac's legacy, it's multifaceted. He's remembered as a man of faith, a patriarch who carried the torch of the covenant from one generation to the next. His story, with all its twists and turns, it's a foundation for the narrative of God's chosen people.
It's amazing how one person's life can have such an impact, for generations to come. And even now, Isaac's story still speaks to us. It gives us insight into faith, family, and just, the human experience.
It really does. It makes us grapple with tough questions. Think about how human actions and divine providence, they work together. How our choices, they don't just affect us, but also those who come after us.
And with that, we come to the end of our deep dive into the life of Isaac from Genesis 26. We're left with, a sense of awe, I think. Wonder at the complexity of his journey. It's a story of highs and lows, of faith and doubt. But ultimately, it's a testament to God's promises and the incredible ways those promises work out across generations. Thanks for joining us. We hope you've gained some new perspectives, some insights into this timeless and complex story. Keep seeking, keep questioning, and keep exploring those stories that shape how we see ourselves and the world around us.
Until next time, happy exploring.